So Nicholas, what we're looking for here is an unresourceful state that presents itself in your life from time to time. When you go into a certain context, for example, then there's a certain state attached to that, which you would say is unresourceful for you. So can you identify a state that might fit that scenario?
I would say in a professional context, when there's perhaps an expectation to share some knowledge, say. So, for example, it could be either an interview or where I go in to meet a client to offer some business advice, and they will ask a question. I might not be able to respond as quickly as I'd like because I feel anxiety.
So if you can access a particular context.
Okay, yeah, I have one in mind.
Can you describe the scenario?
Specifically a job interview where I was asked technical questions and I basically froze.
Okay.
My mind went blank. So.
Okay. So I'd like you now just to take a moment just to think of that specific context and to go back there. So if it helps you to close your eyes, it's entirely up to you. You don't have to. Just to think, going back to that particular scenario, when you're there in this context, and you say your mind has gone blank, which presumably is this where this particular, you use the label anxiety, is this where it comes from or came from when you realize your mind had gone blank? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you could just put yourself exactly there now. You're at that time. This has happened. Okay. And this label that you've given us as anxiety, how does that manifest itself inside you in this moment, in this instant? What's happening?
So I feel in my stomach there's I guess the best way to describe it would be an emptiness, like a black void, and it's quite big. So it feels like it's almost, it starts obviously in the middle of my stomach and it carries on outside my body.
Okay, it carries on outside your body?
Yeah, so it's about this big specifically.
Okay, so it's not only internal, but it also feels external as well.
Yeah.
Okay. What else are you sensing in this scenario? If you were teaching me to be you in this scenario, how would I run this?
I would describe it as a black disc, and there's some slight movement involved. It's either slight rotation, a bit like a black hole, or...
Where is it located again?
Well, the center is in my stomach.
Okay, can you get a sense of that now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's also a slight fluttering as well, almost as if there were butterflies, but or ripples in this circle.
Okay.
And it's not well defined. It's got fuzzy edges, so it's blurred on the outside. So it could potentially be spreading out further than.
So the sensation is a blurred sensation.
Yeah.
Okay. Spreading out. Are there any sounds attached to this at all?
It's either a heavy silence or maybe even a really low rumbling. Something fairly ominous. So you know when you have silence and it almost weighs on your ears. So it's, I guess, you know, I don't want to break into song, but there's a sound of silence basically.
Okay. So a sound of silence, which could be a heavy silence.
Mm-hmm.
Any other sounds? No. Do you have any visual representation of in this context?
It's just black.
Black. Okay. Is there any temperature associated to this?
It's warm. I wouldn't say hot, but it's certainly uncomfortably warm.
And you say uncomfortably, how so? How does that manifest itself? How do you know it's uncomfortable?
Breaking into a sweat.
And where are you experiencing that? Where does that
I think probably my forehead and my neck.
And how has this at all affected, for example, your breathing?
I'm usually quite a deep breather, I guess, so I'd say it's slightly shorter than usual.
Okay, that's good. And now what I'd like you to do in your own time is just to come back into the room, allow your eyes to open in your own time. And shake it off. So you could do that. Do it again? You can do that. You can do it better than me. I don't know what that means, but let's not interpret. Okay, great. So there was a scenario. You're in a situation which is a meeting situation. Your mind's gone blank, and then you experience this particular these sensations which have the label anxiety, anxious, all these submodalities, as we call them, associated with this particular state, which you've defined from our conversation as being unresourceful. Mm-hmm. So if we now forget that, and we've shaken it off, and we've flopped our cheeks around, if we now think about a resourceful state, that would be, in this context, a much more resourceful state. What kind of state would that be, given the context?
So where I've gone into a situation where I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, I feel good, I feel very comfortable.
Confident, comfortable, at the same time. So that's the sort of state. If we put the label confident, comfortable, that would kind of describe this state for you. Mm-hmm. And that's a resourceful state.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just. Can you remember a specific time when you had that, when you were in that state,
yeah.
Confident and comfortable? Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is just to access that context when you had this confident, comfortable state. Okay. So again, take your time, and if it helps to close your eyes, please do so. It's entirely up to you. And just go back. You don't have to tell me what the context is, but just allow yourself to go to that context where you're in a state which is confident and comfortable.
Okay.
And you're there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you're in this particular state, confident and comfortable, can you describe what sensations you have that are associated with this label, confidence or comfortable? Anything that you might be seeing, hearing, feeling, experiencing, sensing?
I'm seeing a very bright white light. It fills my field of vision.
Are you seeing anything else in that?
No, that's it. Okay. There's a warmth associated with this light, so it's very pleasant on the skin.
When you say pleasant on the skin, what does that mean, pleasant?
So it's like feeling sunshine, I guess.
Are there any sounds around?
It's going to sound a bit cheesy, but the occasional bird song.
Bird song. What about the volume of that bird song?
It's in the distance.
Is it continuous or intermittent?
It's intermittent.
Any other sounds at all?
Possibly a slight breeze.
And does the breeze have a sound attached to it?
Yes.
What sensations do you have, if any, inside?
I feel that there's a sensation around my chest and shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And what is that sensation?
I'm aware of strength.
So you're aware of a strength around your chest and shoulders. What does that feel like?
It's empowering.
So there's a strength in your chest and shoulders.
I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's like a ball of energy.
Where's that located?
Probably around here, around the middle of the chest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's a big ball, probably about this big. It's fuzzy, warm.
It's fuzzy and it's warm.
It's almost bursting to get out. So I feel it's pushing me outwards.
Any other sensations that are attached to this?
Tingling in my feet.
A tingling in your feet.
Mm-hmm. And the soles of my feet.
Can you feel that now?
Yes.
What do you notice about your breathing, if anything?
It's very deep, very easy.
By easy, you mean?
It's just a very smooth, steady, deep breath.
Very good.
It goes all the way to my core.
Very good. Anything else that you notice at all about this state, this confident, comfortable state?
I think that's it.
Okay, and in your own time, just allow yourself again to come back into the room, allow your eyes to open. Very good, very good. And it's such a shame, but let's shake that off. Okay, one more time?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. So what I'd like you to do is just take a nice deep breath. And then let it out. Good. Just release any tension that may be there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like us to go back to the first scenario, the unresourceful state. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And so we're going to go back to this context of this meeting where your mind has gone blank. Yeah, remember the context, the specific context.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to ask you again if it helps to allow your eyes to close and just to go back to that specific time as you're heading back there, going back there. And there's a blackness in this state, in this place, this context. There's a blackness, and there's a silence. It's like a heavy silence. So much of a heavy silence is almost as if there's a low rumbling, an ominous feel to it. And there's this empty feeling in the stomach. Yeah, you there? You feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like there's a black void. And it actually feels like it's growing. It's almost partly external in this context, this scenario. Like a black disc almost. And around this void there is a fluttering. There is a fluttering. A sense of it being blurred somehow. And there is a warmth. And this warmth is actually uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable warmth. As you're in the scenario, the mind blank, there's this sense of sweat around the neck, around the forehead. Almost a pressure. And perhaps a sensation of the breathing being a little bit shallow. Yeah. What would happen if that blackness became even blacker, deeper black, does that have an effect on how this feels?
Mm-hmm.
It has an effect. What's the effect it has if it gets deeper black?
Just feel like I'm in a deeper hole.
A deeper hole.
There's no way out.
No way out. Okay, let's just put that blackness back to where it was. Return that blackness to where it was. Okay? And this heavy silence. If that silence were heavier, if that low rumbling was even lower, does that have an effect? It doesn't have an effect. And this sensation of warmth, this uncomfortable sensation of warmth, if it were to get warmer, does that have an effect?
Just greater physical discomfort.
Greater physical discomfort. And the fluttering, if that fluttering were to get even more fluttering, does that have an effect?
No.
So let's make that warmth, put that back to where it was, the same warmth that it was. And this sense of emptiness in the stomach, if that was, if possible, even more empty, if that's possible, does that have an effect?
No.
No. Okay, very good. What I'd like you to do is just with that blackness that you see, just if such a thing is possible, you just see blackness. I'd just like you to notice that that blackness just becomes a little bit lighter. There's a lightness coming through. And almost as if there's a dial on a stereo that as you slowly twist, the depth of blackness gets less and less and less. And as you slowly twist that dial, there's a sense of lightness coming through. Just imagine that lightness beginning to infiltrate the black. It's almost as if the black is fading away and the lightness is coming through. So the lightness is coming. As that dial, imaginary dial, is turning, the lightness comes. In fact, that lightness is now changing and becoming white. As the dial turns, it becomes actually white. And it's light. And actually, it's becoming quite bright as that dial is turned. And it completely fills your field of vision. And that low rumbling, the heavy silence, is beginning to morph. And rather than being continuous, seems to have breaks. Becomes a bit intermittent. And in fact, there's a sense of the sound of a breeze coming through. And now that breeze is coming through, the intermittent sound, that low rumbling, seems to be morphing. And the sound of birdsong can actually be heard coming through. Imagine that sound of birdsong, intermittent in the distance. The sound of birdsong is there. And that sensation of warmth is actually not feeling quite so uncomfortable now. In fact, just imagine that sensation becoming comfortable. It's a different kind of warmth. And almost as if you can feel sunshine on your skin. And that emptiness in the stomach, that emptiness, is actually forming itself into a ball, quite a large ball, almost a football-sized ball. And that ball actually has some energy with it. It's energy. There's energy in that ball. And it's moving up from the stomach to the middle of your chest. And as it moves up from the stomach, as it's moving up now to that area in your chest, it's actually providing strength to your chest, to your shoulders. And it's a fuzzy feeling, a fuzzy, warm feeling with this energy in the middle of your chest, and the associated strength that brings to your chest and your shoulders. So much so that almost feels that it wants to push out of you. And your shallow breathing has changed and is actually becoming smooth and steady and deep. How's that feeling now?
Good.
And what I'd like you to do, Nicholas, is just, in your own time, just come back into the room, allow your eyes to open. In your own time. Very good. Okay, good. And I'd just like to ask you, when you think about that context now, has anything changed at all?
The unresourceful context.
When you think about that context?
I feel that it has no truth to it. Like I can't really, I guess I can't really justify it. It doesn't make sense.
That's interesting. Okay. What I'd like you to think about now is that imagine a scenario where you're going into a meeting, a business meeting, and again, similar kind of situation. Mine just goes a little bit blank. How does that feel now, thinking of that scenario? Maybe 2 weeks hence, in a month's time.
can't do it.
No? Can't do...
I'm trying to think of that kind of scenario, and I can't actually feel that sensation. I can't picture my mind going blank.
Okay, so you can't even picture your mind going blank
No.
to produce that state. That's very good. That's very good. Prior to this, is that a scenario that you could have pictured very easily?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Thanks. Well, that's a map across. Nicholas, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.